Jeff, how are you?
Good. We meet once a year. How goes it?
How you doing? I'm reading this page.
Isn't it great?
Well, I'm on page 3.
Oh, okay. Okay. Have patience, right?
I wasn't sure if it was gonna be freezing in here. My sweater did a dry
I'm
cleaner.
trying to see if we need, I got another copy of the PowerPoint. if we need.
Thank you.
And did you want the summary as it was presented? Stephanie?
Yes, please. I have as it was presented last. Me.
That's the summary page.
Did I hear the wrong live?
We are not gonna be live, it's being recorded and we'll just post it on
They're
our
posted,
website
okay.
in case you all get any inquiries, you can send them to us if people would like to
You can
watch.
refer it.
Yeah,
Okay. Perfect.
but we'll go ahead and get started if y'all are ready. So, it's Wednesday, May 27th, we're in the afternoon, doing the capital budget hearing request for NOPD. We'll do a round of introductions and then you can just walk us through. Thank you. I'm Laura Bryan, City Planning Commission.
Larry Massey, Deputy Director of City Planning. Kyle Holman for Capital Budget.
Justin Weinberg, Capital Projects, help with Shannon on this.
All right. Stephanie Landry, NOPD, Management Services Bureau, Deputy Chief.
Hans Gansky, I'm the Assistant Superintendent.
I'm Ann Kirkpatrick, I'm the superintendent of police.
And I'm Shirley Rollins, I'm the controller.
Great. So we have this presentation, if you want me, I'll just,
So would you like for me to walk through it, kind of
Yeah.
from a big picture and then, questions, or how would you like? Would that be the easiest for you? All right. So will the, public be able to see the presentation itself when it's posted?
We will, we'll typically post this as a separate file.
Okay, and the reason I ask is that I personally don't like to read what is on
Sure.
a PowerPoint.
Sure.
But if you thought that I needed to, I would read what's on the screen.
I don't think
That's
that's-
good, they'll have access to see it.
yeah.
Well,
So, very good. So I will advance, I will do the overall presentation and then our team here will supplement if they think I missed something, and how about that?
Okay,
So we
great.
have 8 projects that we wanted to present to you. A lot of these were actually last year's capital improvement budget, but I'm gonna go ahead and address them as we saw priority. So the bulletproof glass issue is for the desk officer in all 8 of our district offices. And this is something that I thought would be, in many ways, a shovel-ready type of project because it doesn't require great renovation. And it is also a high priority in the safety. So, I know that our police department, before I ever got here, but it is not I don't wanna say uncommon event, but there are many events around the country where a desk officer has been ambushed, somebody walks in on them and they're armed, and the officer is in many ways very vulnerable to an attack, particularly gun violence, by sitting there. And then when you get more specific to New Orleans, the best, a couple of really good examples is the 1st District Station and the 7th District Station. And I assume, has everybody kind of been there so you can visualize in your mind's eye? So when a subject member of the public comes up the elevator, they gotta come up the elevator to get to the desk officer. If you play it out in your mind's eye, when that elevator opens, That officer is literally what we would call in the tunnel of, a shooting. So it is, they're right there, here's the tunnel, and what is the term, Chief, that we use, the fatal funnel is the term that we use in law enforcement, it's a fatal funnel. And, that is why the bulletproof glass is a small lift, in comparison to the safety impact. So that's why, for me, it was a top priority because it's shovel-ready in so many respects. Now, granted, the cost associated is over $1 million, but it's not much over $1 million for the return of the investment. And so I would like to see it for every district station, although some of them are more vulnerable than others, okay? So that's number one. And I can just kind of go through each one, and then you can circle back if that works for you with any specific questions. So we're gonna go to request number 2. This has received a lot of public attention, which is the crime lab building. And the fact that even though it's a relatively new building, there was, and I've heard our mayor reference the issue as well, that the contractor or whoever the right person is in designing the building, there was a flaw in the design of it, such that it does not meet requirements that our lab would need to have to become an accredited lab. It's the 4th floor that is an issue in the building. And I know that there has been some talk, is it better to look at a different building altogether? Or is it better to renovate the 1 floor that would be necessary to bring the lab online as an accredited lab? Because I am not a construction person, architect, all I can do is parrot what I understand the main issue. Actually, the assistant superintendent is way more competent than me in maybe speaking to that issue of the design or what the problem is. So I don't know if you wanna add to.
No, I
your
mean, we've had
understanding
several
of it.
problems, roof leaks, other than that, we've had some other issues, dealing with sometimes that power problem.
Ventilation, I know, was an issue because of the nature of the DNA that they do, the ventilation has to be, and I think it was not.
AC,
The air
Yeah.
AC,
The air ducts.
Yeah, the
that
air
kind of
ducts.
stuff, and then, also that issue with some power out.
Dr. Kelly.
Dr. Kelly.
Dr. Kelly
Yeah,
is the
so we have
lab
a big,
director.
breakdown and architect, rough order of magnitude of the cost, and
Correct.
I think Jerry Harris, the director of capital projects, we recently built this building, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
that's my
so-
understanding.
It's 3 years old.
He's aware, we have it all in the vision of what we have to do, with Dr. Kelly.
Right.
Yeah.
It's more of funding,
Funding.
Yeah.
see, but, I get it.
Yeah,
We need it.
it's just a decision, obviously, by council, by our mayor, by y'all,
Mhm.
as to what is the best step here. But regardless, as it is today, our accreditation would be impacted. And so that's how far I can go in the articulation.
Yeah, and one last thing about that, right, so, listening to the mayor and everyone else, this crime lab, the DNA portion, if it's built out, we get our technicians, will be a moneymaker for us in the city. Because as you know, for us right now, to get DNA, we have to do, the state police does it, and it takes a while, sometimes they rush it, but if we had the ability to do our own, other parishes and other jurisdictions would be coming at us as well. And it's quite a lot of.
It's definitely a revenue,
Yeah, it's a revenue maker, so.
Let's move to the 3rd one. These are also, very critical needs in terms of our evidence. So this is what we call the central evidence and property building. It is housed in really a warehouse that is not built for this type of thing. Have any of y'all actually been in this warehouse to see how the evidence is stored by chance?
Not
No.
inside, no.
Okay, because sometimes if you've been somewhere, you can build that out in your mind's
I've
eye.
been to the criminal district court where they put the stuff up in the attic and
Yep.
stuff, but I get a visual, it's.
Yeah,
what it
okay,
is.
you can kind of get a visual just by the pictures themselves. My concern about this particular building is that, fire suppression issues of concern there, to me. The sprinklers and the fire suppression, it is alarmed, but also we know that the roof is not, what would be the, stable? I think
It's
it's
not
had some real issues with leaking and this type of thing. The greatest impact of this is that if you damage your evidence, you lose your criminal case. And so, if this warehouse, and I tend to want to be careful about this, but if it were to be compromised, your evidence is compromised. And so, it needs to have some very quick attention, as well as all of these buildings, but it's a very high priority for the city to protect their evidence. And I think we had a number of pieces, do you remember what those numbers, it was like, oh gosh, hundreds of thousands of pieces of evidence are in there.
So the vision for this is to basically build a new facility on top of it?
So,
We don't own the current building. We've been leasing it since, where we currently occupy, since Katrina.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be a new build, and what was on the table last year was the Galvez Street that, Trade Noble was negotiating, but I don't know that it is still on the table.
Okay.
So we were gonna purchase the building at Galvez, and we were gonna share the warehouse, which we were
I see.
somewhat opposed to because it's not enough space for everyone. But again, we were gonna purchase the Galvez Street and then make the changes to retrofit for our
the
use.
cost of the retrofit, is my understanding, is where the really heavy lifting is the retrofit cost.
Correct.
I have, just by background, I've been a chief in 2 cities where I moved the property evidence into a new facility. And one was a new build and one was a retrofit. Actually, the retrofit one was an old Costco building. It was fabulous because it had the freezer tanks already there. And also, we were able to put our crime cars, so when we use that terminology, we're talking about like cars that have been used in homicides. We can't get rid of those cars. Right now, many of those would be out in the elements of the rain and stuff like that. And this Costco building was fantastic because we had the room to be able to park these vehicles, and so, but we don't have an old Costco. I've already looked. Trust me, I already looked, because I knew it was a great building for an evidence building. And it doesn't take the same level of retrofit that something like the current one has. Regardless, whether it's Galvez or a totally different warehouse, the uniqueness of, you will probably have to retrofit, but I think you could probably find buildings that are not as costly for a retrofit. One of the questions that I asked was, does it have to actually be located near the court? And that's one of the advantages of the current property and evidence building, is that it's near the court, so officers can go by, give their evidence, and go to the court. The Costco I just referenced in Spokane, Washington, that's where I moved a property and evidence building, was nowhere near the court. It would be like being in far east New Orleans, it would be that kind of comparison. So, but, there, we used, officers who are technicians for property and evidence, and they actually transferred themselves, they took the evidence to the court, to the officer. It was just a matter of documenting chain of command. So it's doable. But regardless, this is a critical need. And, I guess the way I look at it is the city's gonna all notice about the need of the critical nature of evidence protection. Okay, so enough said there.
I do have a question though. There's been, or people have, a lot of different agencies are looking for storage, you know, whether it's,
Yes.
clerk of court
Correct.
or
Right.
even, the library for their archives.
Correct.
Are there any like existing city, like empty buildings that could be used
Well,
or?
I did make an inquiry, a year or so ago, haven't quite made 3 years yet here. And I did ask, could I see a list of all of the buildings? And we could just go take a field trip and go look at the different ones. I've seen a couple, but, that would be more like Trade Noble's world. But whenever y'all want to look at something, I'm happy to go look at stuff. And we have a captain and, lieutenant, I think we sent to Arizona
Correct.
to see one of the premier evidence buildings, in the country, so that when we do make this move, they would have some foundation to say, these are the types of things we need. I just don't know the answer beyond Mr. Noble's having maybe that list of what's owned up. Yeah. So, and is it cheaper to do a new build versus a retrofit? If you could find an empty Costco, that's your ticket, so, because that was not a heavy retro, just so you know. Okay, let's move to, number 4, which is the headquarters and the garage. So we still have 7 people in this building, I think it's 7?
Yes.
Regardless, we're in the process of trying to move them out, then there will be a completely empty building. But the garage is, we do still use that garage, so actually Chief Landry may be able to speak to the fleet that we have up on the garage deck, and we'll keep.
We still have approximately 60 new vehicles that are stored in the 715 South Broad garage, and that we haven't distributed because we have not outfitted them yet. So, and we also utilize it for transporting our employees who are assigned to 1615 Portage Street. They're still parking at the building, and then we'll just shuttle them to 1615.
So, and you know, it just has its own challenges, and of course, that will be obviously not our decision, it'll be yours, council, and the mayor on what do you do with the facility, but we're soon to be out of it, is what I would say to you.
Demolition.
What you wish to do.
Municipal traffic court. Municipal traffic court was the new building that was built, and are we planning on keeping this as our criminal justice complex? I don't know if the decisions have, things to be made.
Do you wanna speak to the compromise of the structure, I mean,
That is the last page.
well, the garage compromise.
Yeah, it's compromised, and it was funded. This project was funded because, the structural, foundation was shaky. We remediated it, but, I think approximately $2.7 million was allocated, and that's our request number 8. We were told last year that we still had to retain it in because it was one that was actually funded. I don't know where we are with the funding at this point. It was for the NOPD headquarters parking garage renovations.
Right.
Yeah, so I know engineers came in to shore it up. However, we don't know how long the shoring up is going to last. So that was something that I think Jerry and.
I think Jerry and another project manager on capital projects, we have the engineering behind it. I think we have to just move forward with construction once the decisions are made.
Yeah.
Right, so.
Kyle, can you tell us about whether the NOPD headquarters is on the list for bond funding?
So it wasn't because of these open kind of questions about where and what it
Yeah.
will go. So like there had been money allocated to the garage, but I believe it was reallocated to the jail when we needed to finish that. And so when the discussions were had about, you know, replenishing those projects, the headquarters had already moved, so that was not as a high priority to get
Yeah.
funded back. So it's kind of been in limbo until they decide where they're gonna go and what's gonna happen.
Right.
Cause there's like a 10-year lease currently for, I think, with the building over here.
And so
But
those,
wait, 1615 Fortress,
Yes,
it's a 5-year lease.
it's
Yeah.
fine.
It's a 5-year lease.
We've been
So
in
that
that
was-
too.
So, and we're year 2 in it, so.
Okay, that was someone mentioned.
So we have 3 years left unless they're renegotiating. Again, that's another Trade Nobles question. Yeah.
so from my memory, there was a engineering report on the garage
Yeah.
roughly a decade ago, I believe. Found like some issues with the top deck and maybe the fins around the garage
I didn't know
itself.
about that.
Yes.
Have there been any repairs or stabilization, actual work done to the garage since
There was
then?
minor stabilization, that's what it
That's
was
what you told me.
minor, and they said that you still needed to shore it up. However, nothing else has been done to the building, since, and it was allocated. It was a part of the capital, and you're right, the funds were redirected for other projects, which we understand, but we don't want it to come crashing down
Right,
either,
right,
so
right.
that's something,
Yep,
okay?
I agree.
So that's gonna be number 4 and number 8. Okay, so we're gonna set that aside. Let's talk about our district stations. These are, you know, speaks for themselves, a lot of the pictures, but in, request 5, 6, and 7, we're talking district station renovation. So the first one will be the first district.
No,
I'm sorry.
the 6th district.
The 6th district, yes, the 6th district, and then, so in the 6th district, this is probably, well, the 8th district is gonna be our most challenged, I think, 8 and 1, but regardless, they're all pretty challenged. So in this one, the overall total investment for renovation would be about 6.3 million is what I've been quoted, is getting you into the renovation.
Thanks to Justin.
What's that?
It's your quote.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
No,
yeah,
no.
okay, let's see.
Yeah, how
Yes.
much it's gonna cost to renovate, for a new
Yeah,
6th
I-
district station?
Crunch the numbers.
Crunch the number, Justin he's responsible for crunching the numbers. So,
I think there, at this present moment, we even asked earlier today, we had a meeting, and we had the 6th district captain in this meeting, and we asked her, what about just the HVAC right now? And she said, half the building is freezing cold, the other half is a sauna. And so that's one major challenge, is just their ability, but as you can see, they, have, last year and a couple of times in the past 6 months, they haven't had working restrooms. And so when you have about 85 staffers in that building, you don't even have a working restroom. But that's been true in a lot of our district stations. The 8th district went offline with restrooms and all of that. You know, you're having to bring porta potties in. I think from my perspective, my really big concerns are issues associated with restroom ability and mold. Mold is just such a big problem here. And so that's kind of where we're at, speaking about the 6th district. If you don't mind, we'll just also look at the 4th district, because many of these are similar issues, particularly with plumbing, with mold. And in this particular 1st district, which you know is up there on Rampart, and they had, last year, they also went completely offline with, restrooms. And you, again, you're dealing with like 85 officers and staff in the facility, but then the overflow of the sewage was like leaking down the walls and down into the Sally Port.
that's correct.
And,
And it's right now, it's happening again right now,
Yes,
as we
they're-
speak.
they're gone as we
We had an issue last year, and now it's coming to, again, so. It's
So-
difficult to maintain staffing in a building that.
And, you know, we, overall making a remark about the buildings. This is not a blame game in any kind of way toward our maintenance team. They do what they can, they really do. And so it's just that it seems to be a non-fixable situation that has any kind of permanent hold. And so, it may just be at this point, it's not necessarily a fixable situation. Which then takes us to the 8th district. And if you even look up in the bottom picture, which is a ceiling, there, the building obviously is historical building. The COPS 8 citizen group, who collectively, they are members who live in the district, the 8th district, French Quarter, business owners, you know, they independently fund certain things, and they've done a lot to try to make it an environment that the officers can like even potentially be there. But again, you're dealing with major mold, disrepair. And so all these stations, the few that we've listed here, are pretty dramatically dysfunctional. And so.
As far as the 8th district goes, it's mostly, there's no elevator.
Yeah, so it's not ADA.
You know,
Yeah.
can't get people up there or down that are disabled. Secondly is, they have to use these stairwells that are really in bad shape to get up to the 2nd floor, so that becomes a problem. But the superintendent's correct, the COPS 8 folks have done a lot, put in a lot of money into redoing the entire lobby and some of the 2nd floor. However, the issues become, and a couple of bathrooms, but the issue becomes, you know, getting up to the 2nd floor is a major problem. And this elevator, when I was in command of the 8th district in 22, you know, capital projects were supposed to be working on an elevator and new elevator and so on, but there's a part that they can't get because the elevator's so old, it's no longer feasible to use it, so they really need a whole new elevator is really the thing. I don't know why we're still messing with this part. I don't get it.
So this is where we're at. These are our asks on the capital improvement, budget, and you have the numbers here associated with the projects. So it's just really kind of a matter of presenting it to you and having y'all make some, do you have any questions about any of it? I just gave you a really big overview.
No, the only one I'm just thinking is the district stations are NRA, right? Do we do a feasibility study for a lower price to see what we can do to restore them, or we need to rebuild 2 new stations? Like, I'm just,
Restoration versus new builds, is that something we would do? I hate to
No,
say that,
no.
but is that
It
something
would be
like
the
Trey
capital.
Nobles would do for?
I guess one of the questions are y'all tied to the locations
Oh,
of them?
we would
Yeah.
prefer the locations there.
Yeah, so in particular, I'll give you an example, the 8th district. You try to move that district, you're gonna have.
But what about the fire headquarters building?
The city
I
park.
understand, but.
Yeah.
Oh,
The old one on the
street.
Taylor?
Now for a reason.
You're.
Why are you moving out?
Well, cause the city park,
Okay. Is there anything wrong with the building?
that would be a Trey Nobles question.
Right,
Oh,
exactly.
okay.
I think that's why we're going to city park.
Well, that's why we have the city has a lot of buildings that are
Right.
empty and rotting, and then we
Right.
have a lot of occupied ones. So it's like,
Right.
you know, we need to be better at using what we already have, and if not, offloading it and finding something that actually works.
Offloading will probably.
Have you,
Cause like when someone would want the 8th district building in the French
Oh, yeah,
Quarter.
but but you get into a point, being there, you're getting into a point where those businesses who are probably very influential, and you're gonna have the residents there, they want that building there. Have you talked about moving? I'm telling you, you're
Historic
gonna have picket signs
value.
outside.
It's an historic building, you already know that.
Yeah.
I don't
I was curious if y'all have talked recently with Trey about like your lease and the headquarters.
We have.
You have recently? Okay.
Yeah, I speak to Trey almost every day.
Okay.
It's a work in progress, because his thing is, it's funding, and he recognizes that we need to get out of the building, and he said that he was working through. Right now, at 1615, we're working on getting AC on the weekend, because we're gearing up for the summer, and in the evenings in corporate buildings, you don't have AC. So, and we're a 24/7 organization, so those are the things that we're looking at, so it's advantageous for us to, if someone makes a decision on us getting a permanent structure, so that we can house people.
Yeah.
You know.
I guess he would really be the one to spearhead that discussion
Correct.
now, so we would wait for him, he has to make that decision before, I guess it seems like he's the one that would be in charge of when that funding would get allocated.
Correct.
So.
And the last conversation I had with him, it was, bond funding, and he's waiting for bond funding.
So in this, and Kyle, so this bond funding list of projects from the last, initiative that went through the voters will be sold in 3 different groupings, and headquarters is not on any of those groupings. So that's
I don't believe it is.
26 this summer, 28 and 30. So I'm just like, in terms of timeline, like
Right.
that doesn't sound like there would be money available until after 30, right? Potentially.
Well, yeah, that's why, I mean, based off of the city planning commission's recommendation in prior years of having to do a study about all
Municipal building.
Yeah.
municipal buildings, so that there is like a larger
Master plan.
master plan of how, what's gonna, and then we can focus the money on checking things off of that master plan, rather than just doing it piecemeal and ad hoc, as it is currently.
So, I wanna ask a question about the projects that were funded last year, that was recommended. Well, were they done? Because, MTA East is one of the ones that the superintendent had last year. It was the restrooms there. It's $169,000. It was recommended, I don't know if you, can you give us an update on that?
But, yeah, but then some of the things on the CIP did, like, because the
Right.
council came
Okay.
later and made changes.
Changes, right.
What we recommended through the CIP wasn't necessarily
What the council-
what got onto the project list for the bonds.
Okay,
So that's what I would have to check that
Okay.
list to confirm which things.
would you
for-
please give us an
Onto
update
that,
on it,
yeah.
because I have it from last year,
Yeah.
and I think that was one of her major projects, is to have a restroom out at MTA East, because there's no
There's
bathrooms.
0.
Yeah.
Yes,
I remember that.
right, it was
I've been out there.
$169,000.
They'll do the training out there,
Right.
they go to the driving range, and then they have to run all the way back to, correct,
Right,
Yeah.
I've seen, yeah.
And then you have 30 recruiters standing in line for a restroom. So, and they, I mean, if you ever go out there, it's a minimum of a football field and not two to go from the driving range.
Well, I do know, like, for the bond sale the first bond sale closes next month. And
okay,
I do know that it's not included, because a lot of the projects that got included are the ones that are already designed. So
okay,
they're ready to go into construction immediately. So we would be
That makes
looking
sense.
at 2028 as the next
so,
availability of that.
So you're
Do
getting
you
rid of
know
all
what,
this?
just from my perspective of educating me, you know, I hear that none of the projects would even be feasible before 2030. What do we do in the meantime? Are there options for the meantime?
Well, the only way to get changes to the list is to go through the council. So the council has already changed the list, it's through a motion, so we would have to identify maybe needs that were higher priority, but you would then subsequently have to find projects that would be reduced. So that's
if-
kind of that
If that doesn't
calculus.
occur, in fairness, and I'm just trying to play out my dominoes till the last one drops, what do we do for officers who don't have a restroom or the sewage or whatever? What is a temporary, 3-year temporary fix? Is there any option at all? Or do we just say, buckle down, folks, you got 3 years?
Well, if there was a revamp of the city's budget that provided property management with sufficient funding to do major repairs, that would be one way of being able to tackle it in the meantime, raising revenue and increasing property management's budget, you know, something along those lines. So,
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. the new administration has been looking at, you know, other than bonds, what other revenue sources could be used, and looking at the needs for maintenance and repairs. And so they're having those discussions through the Infrastructure Coordinating Council. So they're acknowledging the issue
Sure, I
and
know
looking for
it's, I know
solutions.
it's dire, and I know it's not just an LPD, I
Yeah.
really do. I was just wondering if there are other options for even temporary until we get through these budget issues, but
Yeah.
no, not really, okay,
Mhm.
all right.
Sorry to not have better, news or
Oh,
options.
that's okay, I mean, I'd like to know.
Can we ask
I'd
a
rather have
question?
real-
Did the DNA lab renovations make the list?
None of it made the list. Did anything from LPD make the list?
Yes, I'm pretty sure the
The-
restroom.
The
is-
restroom,
Yeah,
it was
the restroom.
169,000.
Bulletproof glasses was supposed to
one,
have made the
yeah.
list as well,
What was
and so
recommended?
was the central evidence and property and the beginning of the planning for NOB headquarters, those were all supposed to be.
That was a part of the design, yeah, that was
I think this
recommended.
made a resolution.
So,
No, I
he
think,
said something happened, he said,
Yeah,
this is the current.
yeah, like,
If
between.
it's recommended, it was funded, if not, it was zero.
Yeah, so like, when we used the last year's CIP to generate the list for the bond proposition, but then the council changed it
After,
after.
oh, I got it.
So
So,
this is not the one that.
So that's
they
why
prioritized
it wasn't reflected in the reports
Right.
because
Okay.
it was after kind of the plan had already been approved.
Can we get a copy of what was,
Yeah.
the changes, would you please?
Yeah.
So that we can do a comparison and
Yeah.
see, yeah, okay.
Yeah, it should have been whatever wasn't, like when you, I don't know who did the Questicast part, but whatever ones from last year that didn't get populated were the ones that got funded.
Correct, all right, and these are the ones.
So central evidence
Uh-huh.
and, MTA were on the resolution that was approved.
Right.
as a-
Mhm.
But nothing else.
Nothing else.
City thing.
Those were the only two.
Yeah.
Mhm. That's what,
Yeah.
so we make it bathroom, it may, unless there's more changes. It's, I know we're in a tough budget cycle.
So I'm hearing that Central Evidence and MTA was funded for 2026.
For the bond proposition,
Uh-huh.
but I think the money for the evidence warehouse was included in this sale, that's closing next month, but not the restrooms.
Not the restrooms.
So that would be a 2028 or 2030 sale project.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank y'all.
Yeah,
Alright.
yeah, I don't have any other questions.
I don't have any more questions.
All right, thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Alright.
We really appreciate you coming and presenting.
I did have a question about, so what's the opportunity to even get requests for, not that we know one bond sale is going on, but for the other two bond sales?
Well, that's.
Where's the window for the 28 and the 30?
Well, this is, like, this process is really informing the next
The
project.
28 and 30, this is
But
it.
not,
Okay.
not the sale in 2028 or 2030, but the next proposition and any sales from that.
From that.
It has to be put on the, for vote.
Ballot,
It has to put, it has to be put on the ballot for
Okay.
vote before you can make any, that's the process.
But the hope is that we can show that
Mhm.
we can spend the current bonds
Mhm.
quickly and efficiently so that we can go back to voters
more money,
earlier and we can move some of these sales up so that we can continue doing the work, because the city has the capacity. It's just, we weren't able to add additional funding because there was concern that the millage would have to, be higher, and they don't
Roll
want,
it forward.
but they,
That's my recommendation.
I know, but they don't wanna they don't
I know,
wanna
I know.
raise property taxes.
I know.
So that's been the balancing act.
Well, we didn't do it last year, so we're open for it right now. I'm just saying.
Yeah, Yeah.
Don't put me on it. I recommend
That's
it.
other decision
That's
makers.
right. I recommend it. I recommend it. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, well, y'all, thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you guys for submitting the information. We'll compile it, our plan will come out, but, I mean, it'll recommend zero funding, I believe, because there is no bond funding available right now and everything else has been allocated. But at least these will be in the pipeline in the future.
We'll resubmit again until we get. the
Yeah,
funding.
and, I mean, if there were a need to change things around, that can happen at the council level.
Correct.
Just
Like if-
you can't-
Yeah, 5 projects get canceled, then we would be using these CIPs to figure out which projects would replace them.
Okay.
So, so-
Well, thank you for your time. I prefer just knowing the honesty of it, which is helpful. So thank you for that. That's great. All right. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
I'll email you.
Okay.
Take this one?
Just set it, that's all. Let's say it all.
How many y'all? 50 of them? No, not really.